R.L. Stine's Goosebumps books were a huge staple of 90s culture and is a household name, especially among 90s kids. When I was 10 years old, I had every single one of them and enjoyed them all immensely. From the incredibly illustrated and intriguing covers, to the gotcha scares, twist endings, and horrifying monsters such as the infamous Slappy the Dummy, these novels were incredibly engrossing and were the perfect gateway to my love of all things horror today. Of course, with the huge popularity of the books and shows such as Are You Afraid of the Dark and Tales from the Crypt, the prospect of Goosebumps having its own television series seemed inevitable. And on October 27, 1995, the very first episode premiered on YTV in Canada and Fox Kids in the States. In my opinion, the show did a great job of capturing the campy B-movie feeling of the books and really brought them to life. Even the worst episodes had qualities that made them fun and rewarding, and when all was said and done, 74 episodes and 4 seasons of Goosebumps were created. 43 of the original 62 Goosebumps books were adapted, along with 9 stories from the Tales to Give You Goosebumps series and 2 books from Goosebumps Series 2000. Today I'll be counting down every single one, compiling the 2-part episodes into one to bring you the top 56 Goosebumps episodes. Viewer beware, you're in for a scare. Strained peas.
Soon I'll be the only one.
Ha! You talked, and now I have the proof I need. Gotcha now, babe. Now you're the one who's history.
I'll start things off with what I think is the downright dumbest Goosebumps episode there is, Strained Peas. Based on a short story in the Tales to Give You Goosebumps series, this one probably should have just stayed on paper, because it definitely does not translate well to the screen. The plot revolves around an evil baby. That's right, an evil fucking baby. Complete with bad acting, dialogue, and special effects, even by Goosebumps standards. This episode also extensively uses cliches that popped up a lot in other Goosebumps episodes, like the protagonist's parents managing to not see any of the crazy shit that's going on and calling his bluff until the climax, when all is revealed. It also features a pretty dumb twist, which ultimately turns out that the baby was switched up accidentally when it was born and actually belonged to an alien couple. You think that's stupid? Well, it turns out the real baby? Yeah, that's evil too. Incredible. Strained Peas hardly even finds itself in so bad it's good territory that the Goosebumps series prides itself on, and it's even the lowest ranking episode of Goosebumps on IMDb, for good reason. Avoid this one at all costs.
Let that baby talk and give me some food. None of that mushy junk.
Say cheese and die again.
What's happening? No! No! No!
Number 55 has us at the sequel to the classic Goosebumps episode Say Cheese and Die. However, unlike that episode, this sequel is a complete mess and has an unknown actor who doesn't even look like the original playing the same character. The whole episode feels completely rushed, anticlimactic, and features some of the worst acting of the entire series. Full of cringy exposition to explain how it's a follow-up, it still comes off as confusing and probably shouldn't have even been adapted considering they couldn't get any of the original actors. At least the camera is the same model from the original. But the special effects at display here are downright horrid and laughable. Even an adolescent wouldn't be able to take them seriously. It doesn't seem like a coincidence to me that this episode came right after Strained Peas and Season 3 of Goosebumps. Season 3 has some of the worst episodes put to screen. Watch this one only to see how bad the special effects really are.
Nothing fits me anymore. What am I gonna wear? This is crazy.
Don't go to sleep.
I'm not who you think I am. I don't belong here.
You got that right, kid. You don't belong here.
Don't Go to Sleep is one of the most boring episodes of Goosebumps there is. Anyone who's seen JonTron's Goosebumps special should be familiar with this one. He definitely picked a good choice for one of the worst episodes of the series. Even the title is pretty much begging you to stay awake during this tiresome pile of trash. Don't Go to Sleep reeks of cheese and feels incoherent. Like Strained Peas and Say Cheese and Die Again, the acting on display here is some of the worst of the Goosebumps series, and it even features an incoherent cameo from Canadian hockey commentator Don Cherry. A waste of time and not fun in any way whatsoever.
What would I do? I'm not a pro hockey player. I'm a kid. Excuse me, sir. Do you know if my mother's still here?
What's that he said? He wants his mommy.
Your mommy?
The Barking Ghost.
Touch that, and you'll be drawing back a bloody stump.
Cooper, what is wrong with you?
Told me to use my fork.
Any more of that, young man, and you're grounded.
R.L. Stine has stated that The Barking Ghost was one of his least favorite Goosebumps books, so it makes you wonder why this one even got made into a TV episode in the first place. It's completely forgettable, and it comes as no surprise that it's from Season 3 of the Goosebumps series. Boring concepts from Stephen King's Cujo, The Barking Ghost offers boring characters and a plot that basically goes nowhere. Characters turning into dogs and chipmunks provide little scares and prove that the Goosebumps series could have gone nowhere fast if the concepts weren't actually interesting or frightful. I really hate this episode.
Hey, Cooper, you weasel. Don't leave me here. What am I gonna do? You gotta help me, Cooper. This isn't funny anymore.
Cry of the Cat.
Larry, cut! Cut! We're going again.
Cry of the Cat is my least favorite two-part episode of the Goosebumps series. It's based on one of the Goosebumps Series 2000 books, which I recall not liking as much as the original Goosebumps book series, so that might have a part in it. Either way, I really don't understand why this one had to be a two-parter, because it's paced so slowly and features characters that are uninteresting in a weird attempt to rip off the 1996 classic Scream and the whole meta formula. Cry of the Cat is not executed cleverly like the Scream films, and should be avoided.
It didn't have a twist ending. I hate that.
Yeah, me too. I love a good twist ending.
My hairiest adventure.
Hair? What do you mean?
I mean hair, like where you don't expect to see it.
Are you growing some unexpected hair?
No, are you?
No, are you?
No, I just thought maybe you...
I what?
Growing hair in weird places. Never mind.
Hairy Larry. Hair on his head, hair on his mind. Always worried about how he looks.
Don't call me Hairy Larry, I hate that.
Don't get all sensitive, I was just joking.
My hairiest adventure is the worst episode of season 1 in the Goosebumps series, which I'd consider the best season of the whole show. The episode seems like a strange metaphor on puberty and comes off as creepy in more of a cringe-worthy way rather than truly scary. I'd say leave body horror for masters like David Cronenberg or John Carpenter. This one isn't as scary or funny or clever as it thinks it is, although we do get to see a cool cameo of the dog in the Goosebumps intro, which makes it worth the watch. My hairiest adventure was one of my least favorite books in the Goosebumps book series, so it doesn't come as any surprise that this is also one of my least favorite episodes of the show.
What a good little girl. Yes, you are. You're a good little girl. Welcome to your new home, Jasper.
Jasper? The cat? My Jasper?
Perfect School.
I got a bad feeling about this place.
You can eat this?
What?
Perfect School is another example of a boring 2-part episode and my least favorite 45-minute episode after Cry of the Cat. Based on the 7th short story in Tales That Give You Goosebumps, it's about a troubled teen that gets sent away to a boot camp-like school that is actually getting rid of him and replacing him with a perfect, flawless version of himself to send back to his parents reformed. It's not without its scares, but I find the slow pace to really hinder the episode, and I don't see why it couldn't have been compacted into a 22-minute episode like most of the rest, especially considering it was even a short story by the Goosebumps book standards, which were almost always 100 pages at the most. Perfect School is not an episode to rewatch very often.
They're cloning us. The voices, they're the real kids. They must be locked away downstairs. They send the replacements home with the parents. That's impossible. No, it's not. They did it with sheep over in Scotland. These guys, they just took it a step further.
How do you know all this?
I saw my clone. He's in a tank in there. They're growing him right now to replace me.
Trilogy.
Carl told you not to be greedy, but you didn't listen. You're nothing but a greedy little pig.
Get the pig!
Pig goes great.
Although Trilogy seems to be a fan favorite of a lot of Goosebumps fans, I find it to be dull and uninspired, especially considering it's the only episode, or should I say, episodes, that were made up for the show. This means R.L. Stine had no part in writing this one, and you won't be able to find a Trilogy Goosebumps series, because it does not exist. Whereas a lot of 2-part episodes I find tend to drag on a little too long, Trilogy takes this one step further and creates a boring, hour-long dirge that I've probably watched the least out of every Goosebumps episode there is. Where's R.L. Stine when you need him? An Old Story.
What happened to your hair?
Huh? I'll wear what I want to wear. What happened to you? When did your forehead get so big?
An old story, like a lot of episodes I've already listed, is from the dreaded Season 3 of the Goosebumps television series that is adapted from the book Still More Tales to Give You Goosebumps. Luckily, this one isn't a two-parter. It involves two young boys who are staying with their Aunt Delia, who feeds them cookies that transform them into old men just so she can play matchmaker with her other elder friends. This episode gets a lot of hate, but I do find the concept very freaky, and it definitely has some shock value that a lot of other episodes don't have. Trust me, it's nothing special, but everything from this point on in the list is worth watching if you ask me.
Now.
Nice to have met you. We must be going.
Yes, we're late for bingo. Across town. Bye-bye.
Bye, boys.
The Haunted House Game.
Jonathan, I think we're in the game.
Yeah? Oh, why don't we play any stupid game? I just want to go home.
Jonathan, look.
The Haunted House Game was the 5th short story that appeared in the book Even More Tales to Give You Goosebumps, and is definitely one of the least memorable Goosebumps episodes if you ask me. First of all, it's literally nothing like the original short story. Whereas in the book they play a board game, in the television episode they are literally the pieces in the board game, which is odd. This is a very easily dismissible episode. And surprise, surprise, it comes from Season 3, the worst season in the Goosebumps series.
I think he's gone.
That's it, I quit.
Jonathan, we have to keep playing.
Look, I said I quit. I'll find my own way out of here. I'm not going through that again. What's up with this?
Remember what the game said? We have to play as a team. Come on, we'll get out of this. But we have to help each other.
How I Got My Shrunken Head. How I Got My Shrunken Head is yet another frustrating 2-part episode that drags on a little longer than it should. Although not as slow as some of the other 45-minute episodes I've mentioned so far, I really do think it could have been better as just a 22-minute episode. It plays out like an Indiana Jones-esque adventure tale and manages to follow the book surprisingly well, besides the ending and some other small details. Definitely not one of the more memorable episodes, but still worth checking out.
Remembered.
It had nothing to do with the head. You put the magic in me for safekeeping.
Yes.
And it worked. Big time.
Deep Trouble.
Billy?
Deep Trouble. Although not a fan favorite by any means, I find a lot more tolerable than many of the 2-part episodes I've already mentioned, mostly because I find it doesn't drag so much and manages to keep you entertained throughout. Strangely enough, the episode Deep Trouble was adapted from one of the last Goosebumps books in the original series, Deep Trouble 2, and not Deep Trouble 1, which might confuse a lot of readers. The Caribbean atmosphere and the campy but unique makeup effects make this one a fun ride. Attack of the Mutant.
We are now stepping through the invisibility curtain.
Very funny.
Attack of the Mutant finds our protagonist, an avid comic book reader, seeing his favorite supervillain come to life, and becomes wrapped up in a story he could never have dreamed of. Another 2-part episode, this one manages to keep you entertained, but I do think it could have been condensed into 1 part, and definitely worked better as a book rather than a live adaptation. This one has some interesting notable things, like a cameo by the original Batman star Adam West, and the fact that it has its own video game for PC. However, I'd say read the book first.
What's your name?
Skipper.
Weird name for a superhero. Just untie me, would ya?
Return of the Mummy. Return of the Mummy is not one of the most memorable Goosebumps episodes, but it features some interesting set pieces and one of the main actors from Are You Afraid of the Dark, which is another favorite show of mine. Weirdly enough, Return of the Mummy in the original Goosebumps book series was the sequel to Curse of the Mummy's Tomb, which was never adapted into a television episode. Very strange.
Dead? I guess not. Stay here. No! Stop! Hold!
Teacher's Pet.
A cute little bunny. Aren't you cute?
Teacher's Pet is definitely not a quality Goosebumps episode, especially considering it was a season finale. Guess what season? Oh yes, the dreaded Season 3. Based on the second short story in the book Tales to Give You Goosebumps, and bearing little resemblance to it, things take a while to get going, and when they finally do, it isn't worth the wait, and the special effects here are nothing to get excited about. A totally anticlimactic episode, and one that I can't imagine many Goosebumps fans even remembering. Watch this one only for the late Richard McMillan and Michelle Reese, who died from meningitis at only 16 years old.
I'm glad that's over.
Old blanket shit won't be bugging us anymore.
You got that wrong.
The House of No Return.
Do you want to join our organization?
Danger Incorporated. We have room for 1 more member.
Danger Incorporated. What is it?
It's a club for brave people.
Oh, well, I'm not very brave.
You like horror movies, don't you?
No, actually, I cover my eyes during the scary parts.
The House of No Return has to be one of the most pointless Goosebumps episodes there is. Based on the first story of Tales to Give You Goosebumps, the plot involves a clique of 3 kids who call themselves Danger Incorporated and their hunt for a new member of their group who has to stay in a haunted house for an hour. This episode lacks likable characters, plot, scares, and a decent twist ending. The whole episode pretty much goes nowhere. Just another terrible episode from Season 3 of Goosebumps.
Let's cross the street, alright?
Why?
That place freaks me out.
Now!
Phantom of the Auditorium.
Look! Up there! On the catwalk!
Phantom of the Auditorium, from the first season of Goosebumps, is one of the least scary episodes of the entire series, but manages to keep you wrapped up in the mystery of who the Phantom really is, and why he's so interested in messing with these kids. A tongue-in-cheek reference to the Phantom of the Opera, the acting in this episode is above average, and the twist ending, although somewhat predictable, manages to suit the story well and stay faithful to the original Goosebumps book.
Last warning, stay away, Esmeralda, or else.
I don't like this.
Neither do I.
Bad Hair Day.
Ginny? Oh no. Oh no. I've turned my sister into a rabbit.
Bad Hair Day is an episode that has somewhat of a bad rep among Goosebumps diehard fans, but I find a lot of the dark humor in this episode to be fun and legitimately pretty funny, rather than scary, of course. Involving a young, aspiring magician who gets to meet his idol, Amazo, things start going horribly wrong when he realizes Amazo really has magic powers that he uses for evil. Although rather predictable at best, I find the talking rabbit scenes in this episode to be pretty ridiculously entertaining, and this one's more of a guilty pleasure for me.
Hairs?
Don't worry, Tim. I'll think of something. I'll get us out of this.
What? And quit show business?
Werewolf Skin. Werewolf Skin is another two-part episode from Season 3 of Goosebumps, which has made up a big bulk of the list so far. Although not one of the worst two-part Goosebumps episodes, it's definitely one of them that could have benefited from just being a single episode rather than two, as this one really feels like it goes on forever at times. I will give this episode some credit for being genuinely scary sometimes, just because the makeup effects in this episode are really great. But when it comes to werewolves in the Goosebumps universe, The Werewolf of Fever Swamp is definitely the superior episode and book. I will say though, this one's worth watching, especially by Season 3 standards.
Where are they? Colin? Where are the skins?
No, I don't know!
Don't Wake Mommy.
Dad told us all about it. They cut out their heart and liver and stuff and stored in little jars. Gross!
Don't Wake Mommy is a pretty straightforward episode of Goosebumps, but it's also fun and definitely better than the other mummy-themed episode Return of the Mummy. It follows some standard tropes, like the character who doesn't seem scared of anything picking on the protagonist, who's easily frightened but ultimately ends up saving the day. It's pretty plotless, but I find the characters here are likable, and the idea of a mummy attacking you in your own home is pretty fucking messed up if you ask me. Don't watch this one if you're looking for a Goosebumps episode with more substance.
Leave her alone!
How to Kill a Monster. How to Kill a Monster, like Don't Wake Mommy, is a really straightforward episode that follows a lot of Goosebumps cliches and formulas, but still manages to execute them in a fun way. The plot follows two kids staying at their grandparents' house, who find themselves being hunted by a swamp monster. One thing I didn't like about this episode was the sound of the monster itself. It keeps making this weird noise that's really grating on the ears. It sounds like the same sound effect of an elephant or something that's just being pitched up and down, and it's really obvious. Besides that though, this episode is fun, but it doesn't really offer much in terms of plot or characters.
Is it? I don't know. Let's get out of here.
We have to be sure.
Can we please get out of here?
Okay, come on. Let's try the cellar.
Bride of the Living Dummy.
What is it?
I want my bride.
Although Slappy is my favorite monster in the Goosebumps universe, Bride of the Living Dummy is my least favorite episode featuring him. An obvious play on the success of Bride of Chucky at the time, and of course a homage to Bride of Frankenstein, Bride of the Living Dummy finds itself trying to be more comedic than scary most of the time. The episode suffers because of it, I think. Still, it's always fun to watch Slappy wreaking havoc, regardless of how forgettable the character of his bride is.
Oh, Slappy, you say the nicest things. And now I'm ready to be your bride.
What? You? I don't want you, you cheap plastic. I want her. You'll be mine, Kitty. You'll be my slave forever.
After all I've done for you, this is the thanks I get. You rotten old piece of wood.
Attack of the Jack-o'-lanterns.
Where are they? They're gone.
Attack of the Jack-o'-lanterns is a pretty cool episode. It kind of feels similar to the Haunted Mass because it's set on Halloween night, so that's a plus, even though it doesn't come close to the quality of that episode. A highlight of this one has to be its totally out there twist ending that comes out of left field and will leave you shaking your head in bewilderment. Check this one out.
Run! Run! We will find you!
I'd say we scared them pretty good.
More monster blood. More Monster Blood is the sequel to one of the best and most iconic Goosebumps episodes. Unfortunately, it doesn't really compare. It's not a bad episode by any means, but I find it to be pretty cheesy even by Goosebumps standards. A lot of the things that happen in this episode really don't even make sense, and it doesn't follow the plot of the book, Monster Blood Part 2, which is a shame, because that's also one of my favorite books in the series.
Gross!
Awesome Ants. Awesome Ants is one of my favorite episodes from Season 3. It's based off of the 6th short story that appeared in the book Still More Tales to Give You Goosebumps. I know a lot of people really don't like this one, but it genuinely freaks me out. Special effects are pretty cool, and the twist ending in this one, like Attack of the Jack-o'-lanterns, is pretty damn memorable and kind of fucked up. I remember seeing this one as a kid and not being able to sleep at night, so I gotta give it some credit. Check this one out. Go eat worms.
We can call it worms. Nature survivors. Something died in there.
I recall Go Eat Worms being one of the first Goosebumps books I read as a kid. However, it's not one of the best books or episodes by any means. Even R.L. Stine has gone on record to state that Go Eat Worms was one of his worst books, along with The Barking Ghost, which in my opinion might be the worst book in the entire Goosebumps lineup. However, Go Eat Worms, the episode, is benefited by some fun creature design and practical effects which make you feel dirty upon watching it. It's also got one of the more darkly comedic twist endings that could easily scare the shit out of any young person who happened to be tuning in. The characters themselves are kind of flat, but this episode gets points for its slick pacing and black comedy. Ghost Beach.
Freshly placed gravestones for you and your sister. This is what the ghost didn't want you to see.
What does he want? What do you think? To eat you and bury your bones right here.
Ghost Beach plays out like an average Goosebumps episode, with some very predictable twists and characters that seem like recycled characters from other episodes. In my opinion, although it's not a bad episode, I think Ghost Beach just simply isn't scary at all, and anyone who's seen Goosebumps probably already knows how this one is going to end within the first 5 minutes. I do like the atmosphere in this one though, and the scenery and location choices are quite nice and add to the sense of dread that lead to the foreseeable bland ending.
Stay with us, please!
The blob that ate everyone.
Clouds massed in the sky overhead and unleash their fury.
Hey, where's that come from?
An obvious homage to the movie The Blob, and sharing a concept similar to an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark, The Blob That Ate Everyone isn't a very original story, but it packs a decent punch and has some fun, truly freaky moments. The concept of the typewriter that makes fictional stories actually come to life is fun to toy with, and is somewhat similar to the 2015 full-length feature film version of Goosebumps that I have to say I really did not like, as it felt a bit more like a nostalgia cash grab than fan service to me. I like the sort of meta concept of the horror writer in this one, and the creature design of the blob itself is actually pretty fucked up. The idea of being devoured by something like that would be enough to give you nightmares as a kid.
What is it? Some kind of balloon? It's a real monster! Radio controlled. Cool. That's wicked. Cool. I don't know! It's for real! Come on, get out of here!
Vampire breath.
Is this what I think it is? Yeah, it's a coffin. Do you think anybody's in there? I'd rather not know the answer to that question, Freddy.
I've never been interested in vampire folklore much, and luckily Goosebumps rarely falls into that territory. Either way, I do like this episode a lot, as it has some goofy characters and cool set pieces that really give it some character and atmosphere. Although not a scary episode whatsoever, it's got a cool twist ending that you might not see coming. I come back to watch this one just for the atmosphere and set pieces alone, if anything.
By the time you've had your first meal, they'll be fine. Happy birthday!
The Headless Ghost.
What were you expecting? A dish of ice cream?
Your head. Now you don't have to take mine.
Hey, over here!
The Headless Ghost is a very straightforward Goosebumps episode, filled with bad acting, cheesy 90s digital effects, and the overused "they were ghosts the whole time" twist ending. I can't lie though, it's a fun episode and would be a good one to introduce people to Goosebumps with, as it follows a more traditional story arc for the franchise. The characters in this episode are pretty fun too, which takes it to a level of good, but just not great. If you're looking for a classic Goosebumps ghost tale though, this is a worthy one.
It's a head, not a bowling ball! Easy, easy! What are you looking at? Who, me?
A Night in Terror Tower.
What's wrong with us? Sue? What's the matter? I don't know.
The first episode of Goosebumps that I ever saw, A Night in Terror Tower, may be one of the more developed episodes, it being a two-parter and a fan favorite, but I don't really like it as much as others. I will admit, it's well acted compared to most episodes, and full of spooky atmosphere, but the whole medieval thing really doesn't do it for me, and the fantasy elements don't really make it all that scary. I wouldn't pass it off though, as like I said, it's a fan favorite of many. I just find it to be a little dragged out, and could have just been one episode. A Shocker on Shock Street. A Shocker on Shock Street is one of my favorite books in the Goosebumps series, and it's certainly one of the better episodes of Season 3, which I've already expressed my discontent with several times in this list already. I imagine you're probably sick of hearing me say it by now. The episode takes us on a carnival ride of scares, which in turn leads to one of the best twist endings of the entire series in my opinion. It's completely surreal and really catches you off guard, and I don't want to spoil it because you really won't see it coming. The Haunted Mask Part 2.
The evil of the Haunted Mask lives on in our story, The Haunted Mask 2. This is the basement of the store where the Haunted Mask was made. It looks as if the mask maker left in a very big hurry. Wonder why? You'll soon find out.
I think everyone who loves Goosebumps as much as I do can admit that the original Haunted Mask is not only one of the best books in the franchise, but also one of the greatest episodes as well. However, I don't think Part 2 really adds much or comes anywhere near as close to the quality of the original episode. A two-parter and a fan favorite, The Haunted Mask Part 2 pretty much features all the same characters from the original, which is really cool to see, but it's too bad that the mask in this episode isn't nearly as scary as the one in the original. It is nice to see Carly Beth back again, as she's one of the most memorable characters in Goosebumps. Check this one out if you like the first, but don't have your expectations too high.
It's time to finish what we started last Halloween. Older.
You can't scare me.
Monster! Oh, a mud monster! A mud monster is behind me, I see.
You Can't Scare Me is another one of the first Goosebumps episodes that I watched. I must have only been about 3 or 4 years old when I saw it, and it still sticks with me. I remember it giving me nightmares for weeks. Although, now when I watch it, You Can't Scare Me is one of the more comedic and light-hearted episodes, and really doesn't pack many scares at all. It features some of your stereotypical Goosebumps characters, but I really like this one as it's fun, and the design of the mud monster is really cool. This episode also lacks the twist ending that almost all of the books and episodes have, and has more of a cliffhanger that's never resolved, which is kind of disappointing. Either way though, this one is a nostalgic one for me, and I'll never forget it.
To myself that there was nothing wrong with being perfect, that I was able to totally accept myself. To work on your self-growth and definitely do something about your impulsive behavior. Hear me out. Hello there. Hello.
My best friend is invisible.
Boo. Is this supposed to scare us?
My Best Friend is Invisible is one of the cheesiest and stupidest Goosebumps episodes there is, but I think that's what keeps me coming back to it. It's campy, silly fun, and that's what I've always loved about the series. Yes, it's from season 3 and it's pretty awful, but it's just funny. The main reason I like this episode though is because of its totally off-the-wall twist ending that's actually completely fucked up and twisted and could definitely screw up a kid. Not a fan favorite by any means, but I'll defend this episode any day.
We did it to help you, Brent.
To save you from the others.
Click.
Let's see. Rewind. Fast forward.
Oh yes, Click. The episode that was completely ripped off and turned into an Adam Sandler movie with the exact same plot and title. Strange, huh? Anyway, that's besides the point. Click is a very spooky Goosebumps episode that involves a television remote that can alter time. One of the more redeeming episodes of Season 3, Click is an unforgettable entry to the series, mostly because of its extremely dark and hopeless ending that will leave you feeling sick to your stomach. This one's a must-see, but I'm not sure I can say the same for the Adam Sandler movie.
Oh no. Battery low?
The Werewolf of Fever Swamp.
A bunny.
A classic two-parter and another fan favorite, The Werewolf of Fever Swamp is a very good adaptation from the book, arguably one of the best novels in the franchise. It's probably the best acted episode of the Goosebumps series as well, as it features a young Brendan Fletcher, a Canadian actor who would go on to be in films such as Freddy vs. Jason and The Revenant. I know a lot of you will say I should have put this higher on the list, but personally I'm not a big fan of werewolf stories, even though this one is really well done compared to most episodes. And I do dig the atmosphere in this one, but I find it to be kind of predictable and a little dragged out like a lot of the two-part Goosebumps episodes. One Day at Horrorland.
The Morris family is lunch?
Dun, dun.
You're right!
One Day at Horrorland is one of the best Goosebumps books in my opinion, but the episode leaves something to be desired. I do still really love it though, and it's definitely more of a comedic episode, although some of the concepts and ideas in it, like the family being on sort of game show where they can actually die, is kind of crazy and messed up. I think this one actually benefits from being a two-parter and it doesn't feel dragged out at all. I loved this book so much back in the day I even had the video game Escape from Horrorland, which I never even beat because I thought it was too scary. Oh well, maybe someday.
Whoa! Now that's what I call a cliffhanger! Will the Morris family ever get out of Horrorland?
The Cuckoo Clock of Doom.
Awesome. Thanks, Mona. I don't have this one.
Of course not. You said it was lame and he threw it out. But now he'll probably like it, now that he's in love.
This is all too weird. Everything's happening all over again.
Goosebumps was on a roll in Season 1 with The Haunted Mask being the first episode and the second episode being The Cuckoo Clock of Doom. Another great book in the series, it also makes for a really cool episode that's not scary, but just fun. Playing off of the old school time travel plot device, the Cuckoo Clock of Doom has our protagonist swiftly going back in time due to a magical grandfather clock, to the point where he will be completely wiped off the face of the earth if he doesn't act fast. This leads to an interesting and somewhat creepy yet satisfying ending that I'm not going to spoil. This one is a must-see.
Maybe do some window shopping.
Getting warmer.
Take a look in that antique store.
Bingo!
What do you think, hon?
Monster Blood.
Hey, let's see how high it'll bounce.
Okay. Whoa! It went into orbit. Trigger, no!
Monster Blood is one of the most iconic things in Goosebumps lore. Although the episode doesn't quite do the book justice, I would say that Monster Blood is one of the more intriguing and compelling episodes from Season 1, the best season of Goosebumps if you ask me. The idea of a weird goo that has a mind of its own is a somewhat childish concept and really not that scary at all, but it's pretty original and they somehow make it work. The acting in this one is quite awful and pretty over the top, and some of the effects are just lackluster, but either way, this episode is one you really gotta know if you claim to be a Goosebumps fan.
Yes, Gert! Shoot, shoot! Get yourself a bow or something. Go on, shoot, shoot.
Welcome to Dead House.
What was that?
What?
Something moved.
I don't see anything. I'm losing it, Amanda.
Welcome to Dead House has the badge of honor of being the first Goosebumps book ever published. The one that started it all and was an overnight success. It was never one of the best books in the Goosebumps series in my opinion. I actually like the episode more, and it's one of those two-part episodes that work well because you get to know the characters a little bit more and actually get to care for them, which can be hard to do in just 22 minutes. Welcome to Dead House features some of the best acting ever on display in the series, which isn't saying much, but it feels more theatrical and polished compared to a lot of episodes in the series. There's some good scares to be had in this one. The Ghost Next Door.
You're right. There is a ghost around here. It's you.
The Ghost Next Door is one of the best episodes of Goosebumps to me because the characters, like in Welcome to Dead House, are easy to sympathize with and actually developed well in the longer than average 45-minute running time. The performances from the young leads are actually quite good compared to a lot of episodes, and by the end of it you really care for Hannah, who is actually a character in the 2015 adaptation, and the episode's namesake, as she realizes why her friend Danny is the only person who can actually see her. It's by far the best episode of the short-lived 4th season of Goosebumps, the last season. I highly recommend this one if you're looking for an episode with compelling characters and just a plain good ghost tale. Be careful what you wish for.
I shall grant you 3 wishes.
Sure. I mean, that's really cool. But I don't have any wishes right now. I've gotta go.
Of course. I've kept you far too long already. But understand that this is no joke, Samantha.
Be Careful What You Wish For is not only one of my favorite books of the Goosebumps series, but also one of my favorite episodes. I loved it so much as a kid, I even made my own low-budget version of it shot on Shittio. Check this out.
I wish Judas meant you instead of me.
Your wish is granted. Duh.
So as you can see, this episode is one I hold quite dear to me. Even the recent horror movie Wish Upon seems to have copied the story of this episode exactly.
You have to get rid of it. Everything will be fine.
It seems like Hollywood taking ideas from Goosebumps, for example Click, Wish Upon, and the upcoming horror feature Polaroid, which sounds just like Say Cheese and Die, is becoming a trend. And you know what? I'm somewhat okay with that. I can't imagine Wish Upon is anywhere near as fun as this episode is though, so I implore you to check this one out.
Please, is anybody here? I didn't mean it, really. I'm sorry.
Welcome to Camp Nightmare. Welcome to Camp Nightmare is another 2-part classic Goosebumps episode from Season 1. Although it can be a little slow, more time is spent on developing our main character and others at the camp. The episode is best known for its batshit insane twist ending, which I'm not going to spoil if you haven't seen it because it is so over the top, but a completely unforgettable moment in the Goosebumps TV series that stays true to the book.
Hand them out. 1 weapon per boy.
What is this?
Shut up, Billy.
We have a runaway reported from the girls' camp. She's brunette, average height. We suspect she's close by, in the woods, possibly on camp grounds. Search everywhere, aim carefully. We do not want her getting away.
What?
I said shut up, Billy.
Are you saying we're supposed to shoot her?
That's what I said, Billy. She broke the big rule.
No, this is insane. You can't just go killing people.
Revenge of the Lawn Gnomes.
Are these things terrific or what?
I don't know. They're kind of evil looking.
Evil?
I think they're cute.
Yeah, I think so too. And with these guys in the backyard, we are a cinch to win the summer garden contest, am I right?
Yeah, and at Christmas we can dress them up as elves.
Santa's elves?
Dracula's elves, baby.
Revenge of the Lawn Gnomes to me is one of the scariest episodes of Goosebumps. Something about the way they looked to me as a kid really fucked me up, and I remember really struggling to sleep after seeing this episode. I love the practical effects of the gnomes on display here. The makeup effects are really cool, and it seems like they actually used dwarves or children or something to play the gnomes, which gives them a creepy, unsettling, and realistic feel to them. I also really like the plot of the mean, intimidating neighbor who makes for a great antagonist, who doesn't believe that the gnomes are actually sentient. It's a fast-paced, freaky, and fun 22 minutes. Don't miss this one.
It was the gnomes. It was...
The Girl Who Cried Monster. The Girl Who Cried Monster is an undoubtedly iconic episode and book in the Goosebumps series, and one of the ones everyone who read it or watched it on Fox Kids back in the 90s can remember. Straight from the golden age of the Goosebumps TV show, Season 1, The Girl Who Cried Monster is a perfect adaptation of the book and manages to cram all the important details into its short running time. I don't think anyone who saw this episode as a kid can forget the transformation scene of the weird yet seemingly innocent librarian into the fucked up crazy monster with the freaky eyes. The twist ending here is also one you will not forget. Calling all creeps.
We got your message. We are ready.
We are glad we found you, Commander. The creeps are ready to serve.
We called as soon as we saw your message.
Time is short.
We must act quickly. Here are the identity seeds. We must plant them at the school.
Calling All Creeps was an episode I was kind of nervous about putting in my top 10, because I know a lot of Goosebumps fans really don't like this one at all. But me, I actually really love this episode, and I think it's one of the darkest episodes of Goosebumps there is, mostly because of the ending. And a lot of people really hate this one because of its ending, but I really like how out of left field it comes and it just hits you over the head, leaving things mostly ambiguous so you can think up what happened after in your own head. Anyone who's seen the episode knows what I'm talking about. A lot of people say it's anticlimactic, but I strongly disagree. See for yourself and let me know what you think.
can't beat him.
No!
Piano lessons can be murder. Piano Lessons Can Be Murder is another example of why Season 1 of Goosebumps is the best season out of the 4. It's a slow burner, but it gets tenser and tenser as it goes, and the big twist, when it's revealed, is very unsettling and probably one of the scariest moments of the entire series. The book is also a great read and one of the finest books in the Goosebumps collection. Let's get invisible.
Relax, Max. It's not like you haven't seen your own reflection before.
Max? Max, answer me! Where is he?
Let's Get Invisible is an underrated gem of an episode in Season 2 of Goosebumps. It's about a magic mirror that can make you invisible, but it comes with a price. I thought the concept here was pretty brilliant, and the idea that your reflection wants to take over your life and trap you in a mirror forever is truly frightening, and it makes for a good story. I also really like the twist ending and how it's presented. This is one of R.L. Stine's finest and most clever works, and it translates to television extremely well.
No!
Night of the Living Dummy 3.
Well, how come he won't do anything now, huh? How come?
You didn't say please. What's the matter, Zane? I thought we were gonna be buddies. Abracadabra! Oh, I love that trick.
Night of the Living Dummy 3 is one of Slappy's finest appearances in the Goosebumps franchise. Although they managed to screw up everything that was scary about him in the 2015 reboot, Slappy remains, in the original series, the scariest and most iconic symbol of Goosebumps. I can't imagine how many kids he made scared of dolls back in the day. Probably enough to give Chucky a run for his money. This 2-part episode features some of the scariest moments in Goosebumps and even features a young Hayden Christensen who would go on to star in the atrocious Star Wars prequels.
Quit it. Oh, boy, I'll get my turn.
Shut him up.
Stay out of the basement.
We have to go down here.
We?
We'll just take a little peek. Make sure nothing's wrong.
Stay Out of the Basement is one of the best Goosebumps books and episodes. The episode managed to stay quite faithful to the book, and as a 2-parter, we get a lot more character development than we would see in an average 1-part Goosebumps episode. An obvious nod but heartfelt homage to the Little Shop of Horrors, Stay Out of the Basement is a classic Goosebumps episode, and for sure one that many remember to this day.
It's breathing.
I wonder if Dad's doing the rainforest. I'm studying it in school.
It came from beneath the sink.
Get away from me! See, what did I tell you, huh? This is better than the X-Files.
It Came from Beneath the Sink is just another flawless episode from Season 1. Featuring an evil sponge creature called a Gruel, It Came from Beneath the Sink mostly relies on a comedic horror comedy feel, and it nails it quite well. It's not the scariest episode of Goosebumps by any means, but it's got fun characters and an ending that will freak the living shit out of you. It also stars a young Catherine Isabelle, who would go on to star in the Canadian horror classic Ginger Snaps.
What'd you bring back? What is it? A potato?
The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight.
Oh no. No, Dad, you read the wrong chant. This is the one that makes him wake up.
The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight is a notoriously scary episode in the Goosebumps series. The whole episode is just packed with dark atmosphere and dread, and once the scarecrows come alive, things really get messed up. It's very slow-paced, but one of the greatest things about this episode is its ending, which makes you believe everything worked out alright, but like Calling All Creeps, leaves things on an extremely ambiguous note that implies doom and death. This is a must-see episode. Say cheese and die.
Okay, everybody. Say cheese. Cheese.
Say Cheese and Die, like most of the episodes in my top 10 list, is from Season 1 of Goosebumps. It features an adolescent Ryan Gosling who discovers a camera that takes pictures that predict the future, a dark future, which usually involves something terribly awful. Taking influence from Stephen King's The Dead Zone, it's a campy episode, but Gosling's acting is on point, and there's some very creepy moments in this episode that I'm surprised weren't censored, considering that this was a children's show. Say Cheese and Die is an episode I can watch over and over again and not tire of, unlike its awful sequel, which I don't even want to talk about again. I think I've already said enough on that one. You have to check this episode out though, and I also recommend that you read the book, as it might just be the best book in the entire Goosebumps catalog. The Haunted Mask.
Need two losers disappear.
back?
Oh, it's a
This top 10 list wouldn't be complete without the Haunted Mask. The very first episode of Goosebumps, it really started the series off with a bang. The best two-parter of the entire show, The Haunted Mask features the show's most sympathetic and well-rounded character, Carly Beth, facing off against pure evil when she discovers a mask that binds itself to her face and begins taking over her completely. Just the idea of a mask that won't come off and is slowly gaining control over you is enough to make anyone shiver. The Haunted Mask is a perfect starting point for anyone who wants to get a good introduction to the Goosebumps television show and get acquainted with its style. Although the sequel to this episode wasn't the greatest, The Haunted Mask remains the fan favorite of Goosebumps episodes and books to this day, and another brilliant, iconic entity in the Goosebumps franchise, straight from the mind of R.L. Stine. Night of the Living Dummy 2.
Caru, Mary, Donna, Roma, Molyneux, Carano? Sounds like a foreign language or something.
It probably means it takes a dummy to want a dummy.
You and I are gonna make a great team. I just know it.
I know a lot of you might disagree with me on this one, but Night of the Living Dummy 2 is by far my favorite Goosebumps episode ever. In my opinion, Slappy really is the icon of Goosebumps, and this episode scared me like no other when I was a kid. Slappy's nasally snarl of a voice will always be extremely disturbing to me, and I'm surprised they were able to get away with this on a kid's show. The concept of Slappy wanting to take the family as slaves is really fucked up because it could imply a lot of sinister things. The whole episode runs at a blistering pace, managing to develop the tension within the family very quickly, and the protagonist's descent into madness when no one believes her when she says Slappy is alive. The malevolence of Slappy the ventriloquist dummy is enough to scare even hardcore horror buffs. There's just something about the way he looks and talks that is the embodiment of true evil. It's also got one of my favorite endings in the series, and once again, it ends on somewhat of an ambiguous cliffhanger ending that Goosebumps does so well. R.L. Stine's finest creation, Slappy will remain deep in my subconscious at all times and will haunt me forever.
What's going on? What'd I do?
If you didn't do it, then who?
It's good to be back in the family again.
The Goosebumps books and television show left a permanent mark on my childhood that will never be replaced. Thanks to R.L. Stine, my love for all things horror started at a young age and kick-started my imagination for all things scary. Thank you for watching my video on the best episodes of the Goosebumps television series. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you'd like to get Goosebumps and other horror-related videos like these. Take care.
Beware, you're in for a scare.